And there. uh. mm. Mm. If I was being endorsed by Starbucks, I'd probably get 1,000 for every sip. So I saw Alien Covenant last night, and if you just want the long story short, because there's a lot of reviews going on about this movie, some good, some not so good. Excuse me a second. Sorry, allergy season. But if you want the short end of it all, very simply, it's stupid. It's a really stupid movie. Like, I'm not even kidding. The minute it was over, I was cracking up so much. I, had to retain every single giggle until I got to my car, because I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to ruin the film for anybody. And so I went straight to my car, and I started erupting into, lords of laughter and giggles, and I was just... You could just see me driving down Airport Road going, just like I'm the Joker or something. Because I couldn't believe just how ridiculous this was. Okay... There's at least a good portion of the movie, there's a good portion of this that does work. There's actual spots in this film I do see working. I probably have to go into spoilers, but I'll probably save it for, in the second half or so. But there's this other portion of the movie that just doesn't work for me. I'm pretty sure it's working for others, because this is getting, I guess, some kind of a love, how dare you say this movie's bad, it was awesome, and it's there's stuff in here that I can see the Three Stooges doing. Okay, so I like the Alien franchise. I don't have a huge fan crush for it. I do own the anthology, which I think is probably one of the best Blu-rays I've seen since Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings extended cuts, because they pour so much into it. They pour so much detail, so much behind-the-scenes stuff that... It's one of the most prestigious Blu-rays I've ever seen since The Shout Factory. The Shout Factory is like a king-size candy bar compared to the Anthology Blu-ray series. The Blu-ray series, the Anthology Blu-ray, is kind of like the Thanksgiving of Blu-ray DVD sets, since we're checking out. But I never see a franchise that's given so much dedication and love. The first two movies, I think, are really solid. I have not seen the theatrical cut of the third film. I've only seen the director's cut of the third film. I like the director's cut of the third film, so I'm not going to bother with the theatrical version of Alien 3. I refuse to see the theatrical cut of Alien 3. I've heard bad things about it. I like the director's cut. There's more character to it. There's some interesting concepts here and there, but the movie itself exists as a curious anomaly as opposed to a full-length feature, so it remains as it is. Alien Resurrection, it's entertainingly bad, and in a sense, I kind of think that's what Ridley Scott did. He made his own Alien Resurrection, and it's a shame because with Ridley Scott, he does such interesting concepts. He does such interesting ideas. Creation versus creator in Blade Runner. One of my favorite movies, Blade Runner. The idea that you have your own computer asking, is there a way you can extend life form for me, but the fact that they clock in these creations to keel over at a certain time, and the fact that they're rebelling for more life and to experience things, to be human and all that sort of stuff, is a very interesting concept, and scary at the same time. It's kind of like that scene in Rick and Morty where Rick is talking to this little butter droid that he made, and the butter droid is all like, what is my purpose? You pass butter. Oh my god. Yeah, welcome to the club. And that just sums it up perfectly. Now, previously to Alien Covenant, we had Prometheus. It divided a lot of people. They wanted, a straightforward, question to this and this and this and that, and the movie promised that. It was built up as more an event film, and it let people down. It was polarized because it promised that it would answer questions, it would create this whole new thing, but I had a feeling I knew exactly where it was going to go. It was going to be more like a step into answering questions, as opposed to something immediately answering questions. And I think that was probably the biggest problem with the film. And it divided people because they thought it was going to be an immediate prequel to Alien, when in fact we were just going to get like these trilogies or sets of movies that would build into Alien, which does make sense. Because Rome wasn't built in a day, but considering where we are now, we seem to be more geared towards we want these things answered immediately, we want these things done right now. After seeing this movie, I kind of wonder if there was a different version before this one. Because usually films evolve after time. They usually start off as an idea, and then they turn into something else by the end. It literally snowballs into something different by the end. And I've seen that happen, especially with most of Pixar stuff. But in the case of this film, I kind of feel like it was made more as a response to those who didn't like Prometheus. It's Ridley Scott taking some nips of Jack Dean and saying, yeah, you guys didn't like us. Well, I got a better idea. You want the xenomorphs this movie? I'm going to give you all the xenomorphs you want. Okay, we only see one xenomorph, but still, I'm a little ahead of myself. I think in return of those responses, he's made this movie that is serviceable. Serviceable to those who liked the first Alien, but at the same time, he's shutting those off that were really looking forward to a continuation of what the idea of Prometheus was doing. And I liked Prometheus. I didn't hate it. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beautifully shot movie, and it did have some interesting elements that were very theoretical, and at the same time, even if it did get a little prestigious, there were some unique concepts, like creation and the idea of us trying to go further out and understand why this and why that. The turmoil of should we hold on to our own beliefs or accept this whole strange system that's right in front of us. And they just chucked out the window with this one. Okay, so here's the non-spoiler stuff I can talk about. Here's the non-spoiler stuff, so you people can actually listen to what I'm saying. If you know, there were 2 videos released prior to the release of this movie. They were known as prologue videos. There was one with Michael Fassbender as David overlooking the ship that him and Naomi's character, Elizabeth Shaw, was in before she goes to like cryogenically sleep. And then they go to the planet and so forth. And then there was another one with the crew of the Covenant. They were sort of partying a little bit before they went into hyper sleep. They're not in the movie, and without that information into the film, you're not given a lot of character development. I feel those 2 pieces are so essential to the film, they should not have been used as viral videos. I think they should have been just used as key points in the film. They should have been integrated into the beginning, and it would have been fine. Because at least we would have had an understanding of the crew and who they are. And at least with Prometheus, even if the crew was a little underdeveloped here and there, at least I knew them. At least I can understand, okay, this is the punk one, this is the scientist one. And that's the other problem, too. In Prometheus, they were scientists. They were paleontologists. They were digging up history, and one of them was sort of tired of digging up history. They wanted something fresh and alive to understand these sort of things, which made a whole lot of sense when he has this little breakdown moment because he wanted something new and fresh. It's kind of like looking for the lost reels of a movie and then discovering that they're not there, just fragments of stills and stuff. Because it would have been greater to actually hold up your hands and, these are the missing reels, these are great. In Covenant, that's not the case. It's this colonization mission. They're going to a planet to colonize. And they're like their own little colony. I guess it's like back then with Mayflower and all that sort of stuff, but different. It's more of an experiment, I guess. And along the way, they wake up with an emergency. Apparently, their ship is... I can't believe they did this. It's a digital version of the Satellite of Love. It just looks like one giant bar with, like, 2 balls at the end. Original. And its only means of, like, charging itself are these giant... I'm not kidding here. These giant solar sails that power up the ship. And one of them gets torn during, like, I guess this brief electronic storm, and it wakes up the crew in disarray, and some stuff happens. James Franco cameos as the Human Torch. He's just there as a corpse. Wonderful. He could have been interesting, but no, they just kill him off right after the opening credits. Charming. And apparently he's connected to one of the scientists. I forgot her name. I know her last name is Watterson. I'm just going to leave it at that. But anyway, the crew wakes up, and with the captain dead, the newly appointed captain doesn't want, the crew members to overtake and say, "You're a bad man because of all this happening stuff," and he tries to over-relax and stuff. And so after they get everything fixed up, he sees that there's a distress signal from another planet that's like... Damn it! Happens. There we go. There. So there's this other planet they get a distress signal from, and the captain doesn't want, like, the whole crew to go against him, and so he says, alright, we'll go to this planet because the other one we're supposed to go to is, like, 7 years away or something like that. Smart. Because it's a distress call. And everybody knows that you can't ignore a distress call because people are probably in peril or danger. So they go down to this planet that is technically habitable, but here's my problem so far. At least in Prometheus, when they went to this planet, they were smart enough to wear helmets. They were smart enough to at least be cautious, even if it was, an oxygen... Well, when they get inside the ship, it's an oxygen-laden kind of ship that has its own oxygen. It's very breathable in a sense. But even then, I would not be that stupid to walk around this unknown planet full of air and stuff. And as you expect, crew members are going to get infected. Why is that? Because they don't bring protection. They don't have their own little space helmets on or anything. Instead, they're up next to these, like, little fungi things that spawns out these little, like, black dust needles or whatever they are, and they go inside their ear and their nose, and they get infected. Stupid. And this is why these characters don't work. Because they're in space. You think they know better. You think they would take precaution. But they don't. They're literally walking around this alien planet that's full of oxygen. Oh, they don't know any better. You're on another planet you don't even know. You should have the distinction of putting a helmet on or something. You don't know what life forms are going to be there. Come on. So that happens. But like I said, because they're colonists, they're supposed to be couples. Like, they keep on mentioning, oh, we got thousands of other people, but, they show in the ship there's, like, all these frozen, sleeping people in certain places, and these embryos, I guess, just kind of weird, and the only people you focus on are the crew members, and the crew is kind of worse at points. You'd think they would see if there were other qualified people in the other, like, catacomb places or something like that. But nope. These people are hired onto their job. That's about it. That's really it. And these are the best when they're really stupid. Except for Danny McBride, but we'll get to him later. And in terms of how stupid these crew members are on, I already mentioned about the helmet thing. We have a sequence where one of them is in this ship that they landed. It's one of those, like, extra pods, so they can go back and forth between the planet and the spaceship, the mothership. the Covenant. And there's this scene where one of them has an alien pop out of their back, not their chest, because that would have been, kind of cool. No, it's their back. Like, it's really more like a boil explosion. That's wonderful. And so we have this prolonged scene where these two characters freak out over it. One of them is constantly locking the door. She doesn't bother to bring her friend out. No, just leaves her in the hall. Doesn't know how dangerous this... Doesn't know how they... This is the problem with these kind of movies. When the audience knows how much danger there is, as opposed to those who are unaware of it, it can be such a problem because you can just imagine yourself just yelling back at the screen, "Don't go in there with them, blah, 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 blah." And the fact that they're so alien to these, dangers and mysteries, it really hurts it that when we know exactly what's going to happen and they don't, because then that just makes... Because that's when it judges if we, the audience, are smarter or if they are dumber than we are. And that just makes it so frustrating because there can be a smart character in here. There can be someone who at least knows what they're doing, but there isn't. And so you have this sequence where this alien bursts out of a guy's back. Whatever. It happens. And there's this excess of blood that gets over the floor. And so it kind of turns into a Three Stooges thing, where you have, these two characters running back and forth, just, slipping on blood like it's a banana peel. I don't even know if blood is considered that slippable. Milk? Yeah. Banana peels? Maybe. Blood? It even escalates further when one of them runs in with, a shotgun and just slips on it and fires away. Oh my god. I guess when you're in that traumatic state, you can really, lose sense and grip of what's going on, but even then, you should have still a sense of what to do in that kind of situation. You're on this ship, firing away at this little parasite running around, and you're in this loading dock area where there's, this explosive, gassy equipment, and you're, trying to go after this thing like Elmer Fudd, right near these tanks of fuel, which are, highly explosive. You should at least know better to either A, close the ship and wait for the other people to come by, or B, try to quarantine it, or at the very least C, lure it out into the open so you can at the very least try and kill the damn thing. This is what I'm talking about. I cannot think of a certain person that's either ingeniously smart or at the very most, so dumb. And that's what really kills me. These characters are so stupid. I kept sitting back and thinking to myself, okay, is there at least someone that has a brain here? The guy who becomes captain, gets into a situation where it's pretty much like, to quote Brad Jones, Hannibal Lecter asking you to get into the oven, where he's just unbewildered to what's really going on. That's my problem. Are these characters not cautious of what's coming up? The only person that actually acts like as if he's having at least to a sense, is Danny McBride. And surprisingly, I found him to be very engaging. I actually found him to be, the one that actually had the most brains in the whole thing. Because he knew what he was doing, even if he was going against orders, There's this sequence where he's in the Covenant, and he's trying to communicate with them, and there's this electronic storm in between him and the planet that they're trying to get through, and Mother's like, "Oh, no, we got safety precautions, we cannot go closer to the store, we cannot go closer to the store." God, why do I sound like Fisher Stevens as a Hindu? Oh no, we can't go closer to the storm. We have certain barriers to protect. And the fact that he's taking it step by step by step, getting closer to the planet so the ship doesn't get destroyed in the process. And he's doing this with great ease and caution. It makes you wonder, why? Why isn't he with them, thinking these kind of things? Hey, wouldn't it be smart to take these things with caution? Wouldn't it be smart to actually be careful where you step? I mean, give them some credit. There's points where they do kind of sort of act like they know what they're doing. There's a bit where they're taking like water samples and stuff, but that's about it. That's really about it. Most of the time, just walking around and excavating and exploring. And then we get to the second half. Which is pretty much the Prometheus sequel we should have gotten, but didn't. They meet up with David, who apparently lives in this ruined civilization where these engineers used to be. And this is where the film starts to pick up a little bit, just a little bit. And it's revealed that this whole entire time, he's been secretly experimenting and working on things. And the crew is very, unknown to it because they're alien to this planet. So now it goes from this Trek kind of thing, and it's quintessentially Apocalypse Now. That's really what it is. You have the David character played by Michael Fassbender, who's pretty much the Marlon Brando character from Apocalypse Now that's trying to be a godlike entity. Excuse me. And what he's doing is supposed to be like, not necessarily take over the world per se, but it's hinted at early in the film, in a flashback scene, that he wants to go against Creator because he's so fascinated by how humans have a short lifespan. So his ordeal is, okay, well, if you people are going to be like that, then I'm going to make my own with blackjack and hookers. And that'd be kind of cool if it was, though. No, it doesn't go in that direction, even though it would have been great. The blackjack and hookers thing. I don't know, I'm just imagining it right now. Him creating, like, a planet of xenomorphs, so it's just one giant casino. It'd be so wrong, but it'd be hilarious. I swear, if that's not what the third movie's going for, well, it's Ridley Scott, so go figure. Where was I? I don't want to talk about this section because it gets into spoiler territory, but it really changes the David character. He goes from this very unique person who's very observant to more of an anti-hero. And it's interesting because here's this character that views his own vision of the universe and stuff. And it's a sense where it's like, if the human race is going to be like this, then perhaps it's, better for him to make things in his own image. And that's really interesting. And the way they go with that is a very interesting route, which I think is kind of unique. And I think it really owes it to Michael Fassbender's performance. He plays this other character, this other android named Walter, who's pretty much supposed to be the entire opposite of David. Walter is not interested in, learning about humans or anything. He's just there to live life to the fullest and all that kind of stuff, and just, do his duty. And that is actually pretty unique. It definitely offers the idea of what is Creator's creation thinking. Does he want to go against the path that he's been given, or does he just want to sit back and say, yeah, these humans are cool, I'm fine with them? And that is interesting. I really think that is such an interesting idea. And they explore a little bit of that in this one scene where they're both going back and forth with each other and they have different mindsets on life and such. And there's this very bizarre homoerotic sequence where David's trying to teach him how to use a flute. Even the audience was cracking up at this. And you have someone so intellectually very resourceful in knowledge. He's, really graced with the information he's getting, and then you have Walter who's kind of like, yeah, that's cool, but, I just want to live. And that's very interesting, because you have different two life points. You have the person that's, so invested in biology and, wants to be something bigger, and the other person's just there because he just wants to be there, and that's really it. And I kind of wish there was a little more of that. I wish there was a little more of that sense of, ingenuity and stuff. And it's a shame to see how this film takes a lot of detours. It's like the interesting portions of the movie only kick in when David is there, because you're so invested in wondering what's going on and what he's been up to all this time on this planet. Because at the very most, that's because he's from Prometheus. He's from the movie Prometheus, and he's the only one that really holds these answers because the movie is not going to answer what happened after Prometheus. This is supposed to be like 10 years after or something like that. And when we get like some answers to what happened, it's disappointing, but at the same time, you can just picture yourself saying, I really would like this whole smarter, better movie that's literally kept off screen. And there's some interesting aspects of it too. And, when I get into spoilers, I'll talk about those. But no, that's not the movie Ridley Scott made. The first half is with this crew we don't know, and they're not that interesting. The second half is pretty much the Prometheus sequel that we should have gotten, but it's really more of a cliff notes of what happened after the events of Prometheus. And the last half hour is so disappointing that you really think it's going somewhere. Like, for the most part, when it got to the stuff with David, I thought that was interesting. Because here you have this robot that wants to create things in his image and his, point of view and stuff. It's the religious kind of stuff, but it's fascinating. It's very interesting. Because you're kind of wondering exactly what his mindset is like. And yeah, it's something that Ridley Scott is, changing up a little bit. But at the same time, it's interesting. It's at the very most, it does lead to a very interesting point. And yet, that gets all chucked out the window when the last half hour is really just a recapturing of Alien. It just literally turns into a slasher movie like Friday the 13th for no particular reason. Like, if you've seen the Alien movies, you at the very least know the pattern of what happens. There's always going to be that third act where they think they're safe from the danger, but there still is danger. And it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and it's so unnecessary that you could have just simply cut it out and just go from Act 1, Act 2, and then go back to them on the ship, just like getting ready to go into hypersleep and stuff, and it would have been fine. Like, at the very most, I would have said there would have been interesting ideas here, but because you're with these stupid people the most time, making these dumb decisions, it really hurts because they're supposed to be the heroes. They're supposed to be the focus. They're the people that you don't want to see die, but the problem is they made these decisions. They make these situations. It's not like John Hurt accidentally coming across one of the little facehugger eggs and getting it attached to him. It's more of a case of you kind of think that by this point these people know better and would do something instead of just waltzing into like a landmine field and just not knowing any better. And if this film did not have that third act, I think it would have been fine. It would have been very serviceable. They give Watterson's character, I forgot her name, but you know what? I don't even remember any of the people aside from Tennessee, played by Danny McBride, because at least he's doing stuff. Excuse me. But they try to give this character this whole Ripley twist, where she's supposed to be like this, badass character of it all after this traumatic event. But I don't think it works, because you don't feel that switch, because she's in the background most of the time. She's really just sort of there trugging along, and she doesn't do anything significant. Ripley in the first movie, she actually, was with the crew. She talked with the crew. They planned things out, and they were smart about things, especially when cornering the creature in their ship. This character is just pretty much there, and is like, yep, okay. And then they make that switch at the final end, where she's, battling one of the creatures in the spaceship. Great sequence, by the way. They're just ramming into, like, ruins and stuff. It's kind of cool. But then you kind of have this moment where it's like, where did this kind of come from? Because at least with Naomi's character in Prometheus, you were with her all the way. And she was interacting with the crew and doing things with the crew. Here, she has her little moment, her little traumatic moment, and then most of her focus is on the crew, and then David comes in, and then she has her moment, and it kind of comes out of nowhere. Like, oh, this is supposed to be our Ripley character. What about Tennessee? Tennessee! At least with Danny McBride, I'll give him credit. He is trying to do a good performance. He's giving it his all. There's a great sequence where he loses someone close to him, and he has this little moment where it's not overdone. It's perfectly done. You can feel the emotion of the character just breaking down. And that was a great sequence. It made me realize, wow, Danny McBride can actually act. Like, I've seen him in, This Is the End, Your Highness, these lowbrow comedies, and to see him here giving it his all because it's Alien. And, working out these other characters that are written to be stupid and dumb, it really makes me wonder why he wasn't the Ripley character. I think that would have been awesome. Because at the very most, it's his moment saying, we gotta get these people off and stuff. But I want to talk further about this film, but this is getting into spoiler stuff, so after I'm done with this sip, I'm going to talk about the stuff you probably don't want to hear about this movie. If you don't want to be ruined about it, for the love of God, just shut the movie off. Because everything I say is not going to rectify anything at all. Because Alien Covenant is a film that is just so dumbfounded with itself, it doesn't know what it wants to be. Ridley Scott doesn't want to know what he wants to do. I think he got lost after hearing the criticisms of Prometheus. So I'm going to take a sip, and I'm going to talk about spoilers. If you don't want to hear about them, stop it here, and go on your merry way. Okay. Alright, so, spoilers. David is the reason why the xenomorphs were created. I'm not too on the fence with it, as most people are. Because, again, it's kind of an interesting idea. The fact that he's the one that created these creatures. Okay. I can kind of live with that. It's not awful. It's not god-awful. It's kind of interesting. The fact that this android wants to create his own life forms, make them bigger, stronger, and faster, and invincible, even though they're kind of killable. I'm game. I'm okay with that. And I can definitely see why some fans are up in arms, because they think the engineers are the ones that created them. The fact that they can create good people and also evil people, which is a little more of a creative idea. But then you have this person, this other character that's creating these things, and wants to be sort of like this godlike thing to him, but it sort of backfires because of the execution on their part. Remember I said earlier that they made him this Marlon Brando kind of character? There's one scene where the stupid captain gets attacked by a facehugger and it bursts out of his chest. And there's this scene that I swear I tried for the life of me not to laugh at too hard, where the alien just sort of stands up like he's, baby Groot, and just slowly growing, and he sees, like, David goes, "Ah, my master!" And that's the other thing, too. At least in the first Alien, the xenomorphs took a while to progress. They had this slow progression of, being birthed, and... excuse me. They had this slow progression of being birthed, and had this slow lifespan kind of progression. And here they just speed it up just for plot convenience. And it really messes with the continuity of the franchise when you're changing something that already was kind of unique, because you sort of wonder, how could that little thing just grow big over time? But no, Scott's all like, it's a quick progression. They just shed quick and boom, it's like a butterfly. So, that last act is pretty much an Alien movie in half an hour. An alien sneaks onto the ship. In a way, one of the crew members are attacked by a facehugger, but we think he's saved, but in actuality he still gets impregnated, which is kind of weird and doesn't make any sense, because usually after you get impregnated by a facehugger, you get zonked out for a while, because it's progressing inside of you. So then an alien gets loose on a ship, and it pretty much pulls a Jason Voorhees and kills 2 crew members showering. This is in the trailer. And then it literally becomes the ending to Alien, where Tennessee and the Ripley character jetson it out into space by means of equipment. I guess we won't be needing that anymore, just millions of dollars into space. The only cool thing about it is the alien getting crushed by this half bulldozer, half forklift device. And then we get a twist, which I'm sure nobody would have seen coming. Okay, so earlier in the film, David... I already mentioned that Michael Fassbender plays two androids. One's Walter, who's with the Covenant, and he plays David, who was with Prometheus. And there's this fight scene that happens because Walter thinks that what David is doing wrong, because apparently it's revealed that Elizabeth Shaw was experimented on by David. Again, an interesting idea, but instead it's shoved out of the way. Because it's such a terrifying idea. The fact that David has gone completely bonkers and thinks that he can be like this giant creator entity that can be all praised and stuff. Which, again, could be perfect. And so there's this fight scene that happens. We don't see the outcome. And then it's later revealed that David is posing as Walter, and he brings aboard some of his creations onto the ship. I swear for the life of me, I was trying not to crack up at this. And he regurgitates these little crystallized embryos of facehuggers. Like, I'm not even kidding. He goes like as if he's just coughing up diamonds like Mal from the Goonies. And he just puts them in the storage and stuff, and there's two of them, and it's like, really? We're not doing anything like a little tiny facer crawling out something like a spark, like, because at least that would have been cool. It was such a... It was building to a poignant moment, and then it's let down by the stupidest image of just seeing David going, So now we're gonna go into like another entry where they're going to the planet they were going to, and I guess David's gonna do something. I don't know what. But it's like, really? You're ending it this way? You're ending it this way? I thought Alien Resurrection was bad, but this just outdoes it by a long shot. I mean, wow. Of all the things I've seen, we go from alien-human hybrid with little puppy dog-like eyes to David just going, and then like this half-hour climax where it's just Friday the 13th, but with Alien. You know, there could be a smarter route here. Like I said, you could just have the first two acts. Or you could just do that movie that didn't happen, but is vaguely hinted at. The fact that David's the one that destroyed the engineers with all the black goo and stuff, and the fact that he experimented on Elizabeth Shaw, because that would have been very interesting. That would have been interesting, them, you know, experiencing the culture and stuff, and then David learning about the culture so he can go against humanity and everything else. Because then you have this really weird jump where you're wondering if there's something sinister about David, or he's very observant about something, and now here, you learn more about his character, and you realize this is a person that is bent on destroying humanity. He's not there to serve. He's there to actually go against it. Because he thinks that he can do something better than, you know, people. Which is a very scary thought. And it's an interesting idea. And it's clear that's really the direction Ridley Scott wants to go in. And by all means, if that's really it, that's the only thing I'm going to keep coming back for. Not for the other characters, not for the xenomorphs, not for all this BS mythology stuff, just because of David, because he's the only interesting character. It's like, why do you see Friday the 13th? Oh, because of Jason. Because Jason's interesting. He can't be killed. The same thing with David. He's an android. Even though he could have been easily killed at some points. Hell, in the first film he had his head ripped off by a strong being. It's like, Why even do this? Why? I was fine when you're doing this parallel timeline with Prometheus and going to this and going to that, and now it's like, oh, well, you didn't like that, so now here is what you guys want. It's not what I want. I don't even think it's what anybody wants. And I know there's some people out there like, this movie's amazing because the film has a xenomorph that did like the first film. Like, no. If that's the case, put Alien on. Put Aliens on. Because at least those are interesting survival films. These movies are supposed to be exploring into, like, the aspects of creation and all that sort of stuff. And the fact that we were promised that there would be a continuation on those themes, and they were just literally ejected right out of the film. Just have, a wham-bam slasher-mam kind of film. Ridley Scott is not a bad director. I don't think he's a bad director. He can do good movies. But there comes a point where studios really need to think about what they're doing and who they're giving the blank checks to. Also, the keys to the liquor cabinet. Seriously, have you seen him in interviews? Like, listen to the audio commentary of Prometheus. He sounds like as if he's, like, having a couple of nips. Like, there's a bit where he's trying to talk about the hologram scanner thingies, and he's like, oh, I had these kind of things at the studio, something Hong Kong, F you, it's a hologram, Like, it's my movie. I made all these movies, a few of them are in the Library of Congress, It's my film, and it's my vision. Like, okay, if it's your vision, then it's our understanding that we as the viewer and the audience have to trust you on your vision. And if we don't trust you on your vision, then most likely, when you do your next movie, not a lot of people are going to be there. Unless you can come up with an interesting concept that gravitates us and intrigues us, we will be sold on it. But for the time being, this was a stupid movie. This is not really good. It's just a straightforward, generic, dumb people going somewhere. It's pretty much Cabin in the Woods, but in space. It's the tropes of a Cabin in the Woods movie, but in space. But even then, at least Evil Dead was smart enough to do those kinds of things better than this. So, if you just want that, this is the movie for you, but if you're looking for something smarter and ingenuitive, you're not going to get that here. You'll get a lot of laughs, but you just won't get that here. So, that's all I got. I'll see you next time I do Pirates 5. At least that'd be a little more entertaining than... I'm just expecting a canoe to spit out of him, just like Adam West. This movie's stupid. That's all I got. Good night.